Hello, well today I'm at Byards Leap, a hamlet situated some 6 miles from Sleaford on a junction of the busy A17. Now it's quite unremarkable. There's a cafe, a garage, a few houses, and that's really it. But according to legend, it's the site of a ferocious battle between an evil witch, a local champion, and a magnificent blind horse called Byard. The story goes that there was once a wicked witch who lived here, and she terrorized the district. At length, a hero emerged who vowed to kill the witch. Now, in some versions of the story, the hero is a humble shepherd who was once friends with the witch. In others, the champion is a bold knight or a retired soldier called Black Jim. But in all the varying accounts, the story is basically the same. So here is the legend of Byards Leap.
Long ago, on Ancaster Heath, there lived a witch called Old Meg who terrorized the district. She caused crops to fail, cattle to perish, and children to fall ill, and anyone foolhardy enough to oppose her met a swift and violent end. At length, a champion emerged who vowed to rid the district of the scourge of both man and beast. He had the pick of a dozen horses on which to ride to battle, and realizing that whichever mount he chose needed to be quick and alert, he devised a plan to test their reactions. While the horses drank at the village pond, he tossed a large pebble into the water. The quickest to react to the splash was an old blind horse called Byard. He took this as a good omen, because a blind horse would not be scared by the loathsome appearance of the witch. The champion mounted Byard, and armed with a sword he rode to Old Meg's den and called out to her. In answer, a sepulchral voice replied mockingly, "I must suckle my cubs, I must buckle my shoes, and then I'll be with you, my laddie." No sooner had these words been uttered than the witch appeared wearing razor-sharp metal talons attached to her hands and boots. Seeing the terrible apparition before him, the champion slashed down with his sword, severing her left breast. Howling in pain and anger, the witch leapt up behind him, digging her savage metal claws into Byard's flank. Startled and in pain, the horse reared up and sprang forward in a huge leap of 60 feet. Meg was jolted loose, and the champion, turning in the saddle, ran her through with his sword. But the blow was so forceful that the blade passed clean through Old Meg and pierced the horse too. Byard collapsed mortally wounded in the moment of his master's triumph. Thus at last the villagers were able to enjoy peace and quiet and could lead their lives free from her enchantment. Old Meg was buried at the crossroads with a stake through her heart, and a large stone was placed over her. The scene of the confrontation has been known ever since as Byards Leap.
And this is where the battle took place. And these horseshoes, embedded in the ground, marked the spot of Byard's incredible leap. And it's where he was mortally wounded. It's also where Old Meg met her doom. But that's not all. There is something just as interesting on the other side of the road. The witch was buried at the crossroads, and a stake was driven through her evil heart, and a large boulder was put over her, and her grave can still be seen to this day. Old Meg was buried beneath this mounting block on the corner of the Cranwell to Sleaford Road. In some stories, she had a brood of demonic children called cubs. They were also slain and buried with her. Now, her cave or hut was situated where the garage now stands. Now, the village pond, which was known locally as the Muck Pool, was either situated close to the crossroads or possibly under the old schoolhouse. Well, it's a fascinating story, but is there any truth to the legend? Well, the hoof prints in the ground, said to have been made by Bayard's prodigious leap, represent the joining of 4 parishes on what was formerly an extensive wasteland called Ancaster Heath. Now, there used to be 3 sets of 4 horseshoes. In one version of the legend, Bayard made 3 enormous leaps, but the exertion caused him to collapse and die, and the villagers marked the spot with 3 sets of horseshoes. One set was destroyed many years ago, and the other is somewhere near Bayard's Leap Farm. I don't know its precise location. There's very little information about it. I can only assume that it's on private land. Now, prior to the late 19th century, there were no horseshoes here. There were just 4 large holes in the ground, and the tenant of Bayard's Leap Farm, a man named Richard Bestel, was responsible for keeping the holes free from leaves and other debris. However, he had a bit of a sense of humour, and every few years he would fill in the holes and dig them further and further apart. Now, when the joke started to wear a bit thin, the landowner, General Reeve, had horseshoes put down, but these were stolen. So he had another extra strong set of shoes made and fastened to big blocks of stone. And this was the start of the tradition. I'm sure they've been replaced quite a few times since then. Now, the hamlet has associations with the Order of the Knights Templar. We're only a few miles away from Temple Brewer, one of the few remaining Templar preceptories left in England. If you are a regular here, then you'll know that I made a video about Temple Brewer not too long ago. Bayard's Leap, south of Temple Brewer, with its expansive stretches of heathland, became the Templars' tournament ground. Rather than jousting competitions, the events held here were war games with sizable forces engaged in simulated battles. Looking around, it's hard to imagine medieval war games taking place here. Of all the locations I've visited since I've been making these videos, this has to be the most unlikeliest place to have so much history and folklore attached to it. Now, as I've already mentioned, there are several variations of the legend of Bayard's Leap. Possibly the earliest account was written in 1825 by a Mr. Willoughby. He greatly embellished the story, calling it a Lincolnshire romance. In his version of events, Meg is a beautiful young woman who meets and falls in love with a mysterious stranger who turns out to be the devil himself. He seduces young Meg into selling her soul, and she becomes a hideous monster and the terror of the district. The rest of the tale follows the familiar pattern of Bayard's incredible leap, and she is killed by local hero Black Jim, and her body is dragged down to hell. The legend of Bayard appears in many medieval romances. In the folklore of France, Bayard, the magical bay horse, characterized by its reddish-brown colour, belonged to Emperor Charlemagne. He gave the horse to the 4 sons of a nobleman named Aemon. Though at first sight Bayard seemed like a normal steed, he had the ability to elongate himself when required, such as the time when all 4 brothers needed to mount at once. Even then, Bayard was capable of travelling at enormous speeds. Outside the town of Dinard, in the French part of Belgium, stands La Roche-Bayard, Byards Rock, a large cleft formation that was said to have been split by Bayard when he leapt on the rock at the riverside with a prodigious bound. And there are many places in Belgium linked to the legend of the four sons of Aymon and Bayard. The word Bayard is also associated with chivalry. There are medieval tournament sites in Northamptonshire and Oxford called Bayard's Green. So it's possible that Bayard's Leap derives its name from the tournaments once held here by the Knights Templar. But what about the legend? Well, folk tales were spread by word of mouth from place to place, and in certain locations some of these tales have taken root with subtle alterations. For example, Smuggler's Leap in the county of Kent and the Three Leaps in Anglesey have legends of a prodigious leap attached to them. But what sets Bayard's Leap apart from similar legends is the witch. Now, there is a strong tradition of witchcraft in the area, and that's something I'll tell you more about in a future video. Well, that concludes my visit to Bayard's Leap. If you've made it this far, then thank you very much. And if you'd like to know more about the colourful legend and the history of the hamlet, then I suggest you try and track down a copy of Bayard's Leap by L.R. Cryer. It's provided me with invaluable information for this video. Once again, thank you for joining me, and I hope you join me again next time.